So hi there, today at the Australian Army Tank Museum here in Puckapunyal, Victoria, about 120 kilometres north of Melbourne, and taking a look at some of the World War II era armour that's in their collection. So here we're taking a look at the M24 Light Tank, or the Chaffee, which was a US light tank from late in World War II. So this tank was originally conceived to replace the M3 and M5 Light, or Stuart tanks as the British termed them, that had been in US and Commonwealth service throughout World War II. The reason why is because that Stuart, while it was a very effective tank in some theatres and it served both militaries well, it was only really capable of mounting a relatively small armament, so a 37mm anti-tank gun. The size of the hull, the size of the turret meant that no bigger armament could be put in, and it was felt that as the war progressed that it was necessary to keep upgrading the weapon systems that were available in different tanks. So you saw the Sherman starting off with the M2, M3 75mm, but then moving to the M1 76mm anti-tank gun as it encountered stronger and stronger opponents on the battlefield. And so the concept here was to design a new light that could take the, in this case, the M6 75mm gun that was the development of the gun that was originally placed on the Sherman. So this is the how we end up with the Chaffee. So it's much larger if you look at it from the point of view of sort of track and length and the like compared to the Stuart. But in terms of weight, is definitely a light tank, and used a similar power plant to what later Stuarts had, to what the M5 Stuart had, being a pair of V8 petrol Cadillac engines and a standard sort of hydromatic transmission. So about 25mm of armour all round, heavily sloped, and for that reason you get more effective armour, but not heavily armoured, certainly for late in the war. As a light tank, designed to be used in a reconnaissance role and a scouting role, so high top speed is more important than heavy armour. And certainly with the bigger gun, it had a better punch than the Stuart could deliver. That's a lightened version of the 75mm gun. That's how we end up with the M6 75mm gun, which was perfect for employment on a vehicle such as the Chaffee here. In addition to mounting a more advanced gun, you can see that the Chaffee employs a different manufacturing approach to what you see with the Stuart. So a large use of welds throughout the construction rather than the rivets. Instead of having the old bogie system type suspension, you've now got torsion bars, which gives better off-road performance and capable of higher speeds than what you get on the bogies that were on Shermans and certainly on the Stuarts that this tank was designed to replace. So production commenced in about April 1944, so quite late in the war, just before the invasion of Normandy, and the first units were equipped with them from November 1944. So they didn't see a lot of use, and were mainly used in the European theatre of operations. So about 4,700 were produced in total. Most of these didn't get into usage during World War II, and a lot of them were employed afterwards. And this tank was used into the Korean era and beyond by a lot of other militaries. So this vehicle was also supplied to a lot of other militaries. In addition to the 75mm M6, you've got two Browning 30 calibers that you can see, one in the hull on the tank's right, on my left, and then one coaxially mounted with the M6 main armament. And they were employed up until the late 90s by the Chilean army, who had put a different gun in them. The Danes also apparently put a 90mm into this thing, a 90mm gun, and employed them until late last century. So we've got here, as I mentioned, Cadillac engines in the back, twin 44 T24 V8s, developing about 160 kilowatts. Certainly a good reuse of an existing automotive engine to power this vehicle along. So here you can see at the back with the louvers and the air covers, filler hatches for fluids and the like, towing bar, and the tank tensioning system back here on the idle wheel. So like most US tanks of World War II, you've got a rear-mounted engine with a front transmission and front drive sprocket. So and here are the road wheels. Now it's here because the Australians trialled the Chaffee in the Pacific towards the end of the war to compare how it would perform against other tanks. And there's some great footage from the Australian War Memorial website that I'll link to in the description that shows the Chaffee in the jungles of Southeast Asia, going through trials against a Matilda, which was the tank that the Australians typically employed, and you can get an idea what it was that these vehicles were expected to do if they were going to be employed in the jungles, in terms of the terrain that they would encounter, having to deal with lots of foliage that can tie up the tracks, deep mud, thick mud, all those kinds of things. Really a great video showing the Chaffee in action, and also, interestingly, the capability of the Matilda, which was a similarly sized tank that the Australians had been using for some time against the Japanese. So, main advantages of this tank was its speed, good cross-country performance, a better gun than what had been seen on the Stuart that had been employed through most of the war rather. But of course, the main drawback was light armour. This thing was never designed to go toe-to-toe with the big vehicles that were on the battlefield of World War II. But there it is, the M24 Chaffee Light Tank, a late war tank produced by the US and employed by the US and Commonwealth forces in the European theatre of operations. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you on the next one.